I gave my wedding ring to my wife while she sat with her lover, but that was just the beginning. The $300,000 missing from our accounts was enough to pay for my dying father's surgery. When I discovered who was really pulling the strings in this betrayal, I realized my entire family legacy was the target. Now I'm fighting not just for my vineyard, but for survival itself. And my revenge? It will be served like our finest vintage, aged to perfection. My name is Steve Anderson. I'm 48 years old and the proud owner of Anderson Estates, one of the most respected wineries in Sonoma County. I've spent decades perfecting my craft, building a business from the ground up while raising a family. My father, Frank, taught me everything I know about winemaking: patience, attention to detail, and above all, integrity. These values guided me through life, through my marriage to Elizabeth, and through raising our daughter Emily. Our silver anniversary was supposed to be a celebration of everything we'd built together. I had arranged a surprise, a renewal of vows at the same vineyard where we'd first met, followed by a tasting of a special vintage I'd been saving for this moment. I left work early that afternoon, stopping to pick up the custom anniversary ring I designed for Liz. The traffic was lighter than usual as I drove the winding road home through the Vineyard Hills. I was rehearsing my speech in my head when I spotted an unfamiliar car in our driveway, a sleek black Audi I'd never seen before. For a moment, I thought it might be a surprise from Liz. Maybe she'd invited friends over. As I parked beside it, I noticed the personalized license plate, "Change for you." Something in my gut tightened. I entered our house quietly, hearing laughter from the living room. Liz's musical laugh, the one that had first drawn me to her all those years ago, mixed with a deeper, male voice. They hadn't heard me come in. As I rounded the corner, I saw them, Liz sitting on our couch, leaning intimately toward a man I recognized immediately. Jeffrey Elliott, the local activist who'd been making waves in the community, fighting against vineyard expansions like mine. His hand rested on my wife's knee as she laughed at something he'd said. Time seemed to freeze. 25 years of memories flashed before my eyes in an instant. I stood there, the anniversary ring box clutched in my hand, as my world crumbled silently around me. Neither noticed me until I stepped forward. Liz's eyes widened in shock and recognition. "Steve," she gasped, jumping back from Jeffrey. "You're home early." I didn't shout. I didn't rage. Instead, I approached them with measured steps, set the ring box on the coffee table, and removed my wedding band. I placed it beside the box, the metal making a soft clink against the glass surface. "Happy anniversary," I said, my voice steady despite the earthquake inside me. As I turned to leave, my phone rang. My father's doctor. Dad's condition had worsened. He needed immediate hospitalization. I gave my ring to my wife while she sat with her lover. What happened next would shake my world beyond anything I could have imagined. I drove to the hospital in a daze, my knuckles white against the steering wheel. The betrayal was still fresh, images of Liz and Jeffrey replaying in my mind, but my father needed me. That had to come first. Mercy General's parking lot was nearly full. As I hurried through the automatic doors, the antiseptic smell hit me, a stark reminder of the months we'd spent here during Mom's final battle with cancer 5 years ago. Dad hadn't been the same since losing her. "Frank Anderson," I told the receptionist, my voice steadier than I felt. I was called about his condition. She directed me to the cardiac unit where I found Dr. Cameron waiting. She was new, young, with intelligent eyes and a confident stance. "Mr. Anderson, I'm Dr. Sarah Cameron. Your father has experienced a significant cardiac episode. We need to perform bypass surgery, but given his age and overall health, it's high risk. Do whatever's necessary," I said firmly. As she explained the procedure, a woman approached the desk beside us. Something about her, perhaps the calm competence in her movements, caught my attention despite my turmoil. "Dr. Cameron, the paperwork for Mr. Anderson," she said, handing over a folder. Dr. Cameron introduced us. "Steve, this is Dr. Rachel Mitchell, our cardiac rehabilitation specialist." Dr. Mitchell's handshake was firm, her eyes kind. "Your father mentioned you own Anderson Estates. My father loved your Cabernet Reserve." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed repeatedly. "Liz." I silenced it without looking. Dr. Mitchell noticed. "Family emergencies are never simple. The paperwork can wait if you need a moment." Her understanding, offered without questions, was a small mercy in the chaos of the day. After signing the consent forms, I was allowed to see Dad. He looked smaller in the hospital bed, oxygen tubes in his nose, but his eyes lit up when he saw me. "Son, what about your anniversary plans? Liz will be disappointed. Some things are more important," I managed. "Let's focus on getting you better." Dad's expression sharpened. He'd always read me too well. "What's happened?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed again. A text from Emily. "Dad, call me ASAP. Mom's acting weird and the house is a mess. Coming home tomorrow." My stomach dropped. Emily had been staying at her friend's place in San Francisco. She'd graduated college last year and was interviewing for jobs in the city. The last thing she needed was to walk into this disaster. As I was about to call her, the hospital room door opened. Dr. Cameron returned with news. They'd scheduled Dad's surgery for tomorrow morning. "We'll need someone to stay with him tonight," she said. "Hospital policy." "I'll stay," I replied instantly, ignoring my phone as it buzzed yet again. Whatever storm was brewing at home would have to wait. My father had never once abandoned me when I needed him. I wouldn't leave him now. Dad's eyes, sharp despite his condition, studied my face. "Steve, what's really going on?" he asked quietly. I took a deep breath. How could I tell him that while he was fighting for his life, my marriage was falling apart? Morning came after a restless night in the hospital chair. Dad had finally fallen asleep around 3 a.m., his breathing steady despite the machine's constant beeping. I stretched my stiff muscles and checked my phone. 27 missed calls and texts, mostly from Liz, a few from Emily. Dr. Cameron arrived early to prep Dad for surgery. "We'll take good care of him," she assured me. "The procedure will take several hours. You should get some rest." Rest was impossible. I needed to intercept Emily before she walked into the disaster at home. After a quick shower in the hospital's family room and a change of clothes for my emergency gym bag, I headed to our vineyard estate. As I pulled into the driveway, Emily's compact car was already there. I took a deep breath and steeled myself. Inside, Emily was pacing the living room while Liz sat on the couch, eyes red from crying. "Dad!" Emily rushed to hug me. "What's happening?" "Grandpa's in the hospital, Mom's a mess, and neither of you are answering your phones properly. Your grandfather needs bypass surgery this morning," I explained, keeping my voice steady. "I've been with him all night." Emily's eyes darted between us. At 23, she was perceptive beyond her years. "And what else?" "Mom won't tell me anything." Liz stood up. "Steve, please. We should talk privately first." "No more secrets," I said firmly. "Emily deserves the truth." Liz flinched. "Your mother has been having an affair with Jeffrey Elliott," I said, my voice leveled despite the pain. "I discovered them here yesterday." Emily's face paled. "Jeffrey Elliott? The guy who's been attacking your expansion plans in the town meetings?" I nodded. "How long?" Emily demanded, turning to her mother. Liz wiped her eyes. "About a year," she whispered. Emily stepped back as if struck. "A year? You've been lying to us for a year." "It wasn't just an affair," I added, the words bitter in my mouth. "Your mother has been funding his political campaigns against vineyard developments, using our family's money." Emily gasped. "The college fund money that disappeared? You said it was a bad investment." Liz collapsed back onto the couch. "I can explain everything." "I'm sure you can," I interrupted, surprising myself with my composure. "But right now, I need to get back to my father. Emily, would you like to come with me?" Emily nodded, her expression hardening as she looked at her mother. "I'll pack an overnight bag." As Emily went upstairs, Liz approached me. "Steve, please. Jeffrey meant nothing. It was just—" "Don't," I said, holding on my hand. "Not now. Maybe not ever. My father could be dying, and you've been funding the man who's been trying to destroy everything I've built." I looked around the living room at the photos of our family spanning decades. "When I get back, we'll discuss practical matters, finances, living arrangements. But right now, my father needs me." As Emily returned with her bag, Liz called out desperately, "When will you be back?" I looked at her, this woman I'd loved for half my life, and realized I felt nothing but a hollow ache. "When my father is stable." "Not before." Dad's surgery took 7 hours. Emily and I sat in the waiting room, talking about her job interviews and carefully avoiding the subject of her mother. Around noon, Dr. Mitchell stopped by with coffee. "Thought you could use this," she said, setting down 2 cups. "Surgery's going well so far." "Thank you." I said, grateful for the small kindness. Emily raised an eyebrow as Dr. Mitchell walked away. She seems nice. She's Dad's rehabilitation specialist, I explained. And she brings you coffee. Emily smiled faintly. Before I could respond, my phone rang. William Baker, my oldest friend and local judge. Bill, thanks for calling back, I said, stepping into the hallway. Surgery day's a rough time, he replied. How's Frank doing? Still in surgery. I hesitated. Bill, I need your advice, not as a friend, but as a judge. What's happened? I explained the situation with Liz and Jeffrey, including the misappropriation of funds. Bill's voice darkened. That money was in joint accounts. Most of it. But the vineyard's expansion account was solely in my name. She needed my signature to access it, and I never signed anything. That's fraud, Steve, Bill said carefully. Have you checked all your accounts? My stomach dropped. I hadn't even thought to look. I'll have Patricia help you review everything, Bill offered, mentioning his wife who worked in banking. We can meet tomorrow. After hanging up, I returned to find Dr. Cameron speaking with Emily. Your father's out of surgery, she said when she saw me. It went as well as could be expected, but the next 48 hours are critical. Emily squeezed my hand as we followed the doctor to the ICU. Dad looked frail beneath a mass of tubes and wires, but his color was better. As we settled in for another night at the hospital, my phone buzzed with a text from Bill. Just heard something you should know. Jeffrey Elliott has been involved with other women besides Liz, including Patricia's cousin, who works at the bank. Call me. I stare at the message, pieces falling into place. If Jeffrey had connections at our bank, that might explain how Liz had accessed accounts without proper authorization. I glanced at Dad, sleeping peacefully now, unaware of the chaos. The expansion project he'd been so proud of, the one that would have secured the vineyard's future for Emily and any grandchildren, was now in jeopardy. Dad, Emily whispered, what are we going to do? I put my arm around my daughter's shoulders. We're going to fight, I said quietly. For Grandpa, for the vineyard, for our future. Some things are worth fighting for. Dad stabilized enough by morning that the doctors allowed him to be moved out of the ICU. It was a small victory, but I'd take it. Emily had gone to get us decent coffee when Bill Baker arrived. How's Frank doing? He asked, settling into the chair beside me. Fighting. The doctors are cautiously optimistic. Bill nodded, then lowered his voice. Patricia pulled some records. It's worse than we thought, Steve. He showed me his tablet. Unauthorized transfers from not just our personal accounts, but the vineyard's operational fund as well. Nearly $300,000 in total. This is how Elliott's been funding those lawsuits against your expansion, Bill explained. The money trail leads directly to his environmental foundation. My jaw tightened. That expansion would have used sustainable farming methods. It wasn't just about profit. It was about showing the industry a better way forward. Which is exactly why he targeted you, Bill said grimly. Your success would undermine his entire narrative about vineyard development. I stared at the numbers. The amount would cover most of Dad's medical expenses, which weren't fully insured. There's something else, Bill continued. Patricia thinks Elliott's been running this same scheme with multiple women. Her cousin isn't the only one. Who else? I asked. Bill hesitated. We're not sure yet, but... He stopped abruptly as his phone chimed with a text. The color drained from his face. Bill, it's Patricia, he whispered. She's been having lunch with Elliott for weeks. She says it's about a charity fundraiser. But our eyes met in mutual understanding. The betrayal had spread further than either of us had imagined. Before I could respond, Emily returned with the coffee, followed by Dr. Mitchell. Mr. Anderson, your father's awake and asking for you, she said with a small smile. Bill stood quickly. Go. We'll talk later. The pain in his eyes mirrored my own. In Dad's room, I found him looking frail but alert. Emily hugged him gently, careful of the tubes. You two look terrible, Dad said, his voice raspy but stronger than I expected. What's really going on? I exchanged glances with Emily, who nodded slightly. Liz has been having an affair, I said, keeping my voice steady. With Jeffrey Elliott. Dad's eyes narrowed. That snake who's been fighting your expansion plans. I nodded. She's been funding his campaigns with our money. A lot of it. Dad closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, there was steel in his gaze. How much do you need for the medical bills? I shook my head. Don't worry about that. We'll figure something out. Like hell, Dad growled. I've got savings. Use it. We're not touching your retirement, I insisted. Dr. Mitchell, who had been checking Dad's vitals, spoke up unexpectedly. There's an experimental treatment program that might cover most of the expenses. I was going to mention it this afternoon. We all looked at her. Your father's case fits the profile, she continued. I need to submit his application today. Do it, Dad said immediately. As Dr. Mitchell left to get the paperwork, Dad gripped my hand with surprising strength. Now, he said, tell me how we're going to fight back. The next day, Dad was moved to a standard room, another positive step. Emily had gone to collect some of his things from the house, reluctantly agreeing to see her mother. I was reviewing the application for the experimental treatment program with Dr. Mitchell when my phone rang. It was her family friend, Thomas Reed. Steve, I need to talk to you, he said, his voice urgent. About Jeffrey Elliott. What about him? I asked, stepping into the hallway. I've been looking into his environmental foundation since Bill called. It's mostly a shell. The real money goes to a development company that's been quietly buying land around vineyards that face financial troubles. I felt cold. He's not protecting land. He's acquiring it. Exactly. And guess who sits on that company's board? Alan Bronson. The name meant nothing to me. Who's that? Marina developer from the coast. Word is he's looking to expand inland. Luxury homes with vineyard views, but without the environmental impact of actual working vineyards. As the pieces fell into place, my phone beeped with a text from Emily, coming back with Grandpa's things. Mom insists on coming too. Sorry, I barely had time to process this when Bill called. Steve, Patricia admitted everything. Elliot's been manipulating her to get information about my cases involving land use. She swears nothing physical happened. I sighed. Thomas just called. Elliot's working with a developer named Bronson. They're targeting multiple properties. Bill cursed. Including yours. Looks that way. I'm coming to the hospital, he said. We need to confront this head-on. An hour later, the hospital room had become command central. Bill and Thomas had arrived, and we were reviewing evidence when Emily appeared with Dad's overnight bag, and Liz trailing behind her. Liz froze when she saw the assembled group. Steve, what's going on? That's what we'd all like to know. I replied evenly. How long have you been helping Elliot and Bronson target our vineyard? Her face paled. I don't know what you're talking about. Bill stood. We have the financial records, Liz. And Patricia has admitted her part. Patricia. Liz looked confused. What does she have to do with this? Just then, my phone rang. An unknown number. I answered cautiously. Mr. Anderson? This is Alan Bronson. Came a smooth voice. I think it's time we had a conversation about the future of Anderson Estates. I put the phone on speaker. You're on with me, Bill Baker, Thomas Reed, and my wife who's been helping your partner defraud my family. There was a pause, then a chuckle. Fascinating. I was calling to offer you a way out of the financial mess you're in. But it seems we have more to discuss. Liz's eyes widened in shock. For the first time, I wondered if she truly understood what she'd gotten involved in. The hospital room fell silent after Bronson's call ended. Liz stood frozen, her face ashen as the implication sank in. You really didn't know, I said, more statement than question. She shook her head slowly. Jeffrey said his foundation was fighting for sustainable agriculture. He said your expansion would damage the watershed. Bill stepped forward. The development company he's connected to has already purchased 3 vineyards that went under after his lawsuits and replaced them with luxury housing developments, Thomas added, with vineyard views at premium prices. Liz sank into a chair. I didn't. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. Steve, I swear I didn't know about any development plans. Maybe not, I said, my voice even. But you knew you were taking our money, our daughter's college fund, to finance the man who was actively trying to destroy my business. Emily, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke. How could you, Mom? You've always talked about the importance of the land, of what Dad does. Before Liz could answer, Dad's heart monitor began beeping rapidly. His face had gone gray, his breathing labored. Everyone out, I ordered, hitting the nurse call button. Now, the medical team rushed in as we cleared the room. Dr. Cameron arrived moments later, barking orders as she assessed his condition. The next hour was the longest of my life. Finally, Dr. Cameron emerged, looking tired but relieved. He's stabilized, she said. But this episode makes me concerned about stress triggers. I'm afraid you'll need to keep any confrontations away from his room. I nodded, guilt washing over me. In my determination to expose the truth, I'd endangered my father. As the others talked in hushed tones down the hall, Dr. Mitchell approached me. The application for the experimental program was approved, she said quietly. The treatments are covered, but there's a complication. The procedure needs to be done at the University Hospital in San Francisco. When? As soon as he's stable for transport. 3 days, perhaps. I ran a hand through my hair. The vineyard needed me, especially now, but Dad needed me more. We'll make it work, I said firmly. Dr. Mitchell hesitated. There's something else. I reviewed your father's financial records as part of the application. There was a recent transfer from his personal account to the vineyard's business account. $250,000. I stared at her. That's impossible. I would never take his retirement money. The transfer was authorized last week, before his heart attack, she said. The signature on the form was yours. Cold realization dawned. Someone had forged my signature to access Dad's money, likely to cover the tracks of the earlier theft. I looked down the hall where Bill and Thomas were speaking with Liz, who still appeared shaken. My wife might not have known everything, but she was far from innocent. Dr. Mitchell, I said quietly, I need to ask a favor. 2 days later, Dad was stable enough for the transfer to San Francisco. I'd barely slept, dividing my time between the hospital and meeting with the vineyard's legal team. The forensic accountant Bill had confirmed what I'd suspected. Systematic theft over 14 months, with meticulous efforts to hide the transactions. The smoking gun was the forged transfer from Dad's account. The signatures didn't match, and the timestamp showed it had been processed while I was in a town meeting, speaking publicly against Elliot's latest objection to our sustainable farming proposal. Emily had taken up residence at the hospital, refusing to return home or speak to her mother. Liz had moved in with her sister after our confrontation at the hospital. Mr. Anderson? I looked up to see Dr. Mitchell standing in the doorway of Dad's room. We'd grown strangely comfortable with each other during these long days of crisis. The transport team is ready, she said, and I've arranged to accompany your father to San Francisco. You have? I hadn't expected that. She nodded. The program director is an old colleague. I can ensure the transition is smooth. Thank you, I said, truly grateful. As the transport team prepared Dad, my phone rang. It was Thomas. Steve, you need to see this. Bronson just filed for permits to develop Vineyard View Estates on 3 properties, including the land adjacent to your planned expansion. How? That land isn't for sale. According to the filing, it will be. They're listing your property as part of a planned acquisition. Ice formed in my veins. They're moving forward as if it's a done deal. Exactly. You need to meet with the county commissioner today. I've already set it up. I glanced at Dad, being carefully transferred to the transport gurney. I can't leave now. Steve, Dad said weakly, having overheard. Go. Fight for the vineyard. I'll be fine with Dr. Mitchell. Emily stepped forward. I'll go with Grandpa. You stop those vultures. I looked between them, torn. Son, Dad said with quiet authority, some battles you can't postpone. This is one of them. I knew he was right. Nodding, I squeezed his hand. I'll join you in San Francisco tomorrow. After they departed, I drove straight to the county offices, steeling myself for the fight ahead. The meeting room was crowded, planning officials, legal representatives, and, sitting confidently at the center table, Jeffrey Elliott and Alan Bronson. Elliott's smug expression faltered when he saw me. Bronson merely raised an eyebrow. Mr. Anderson, the commissioner greeted me. These gentlemen were just explaining their development proposal, which depends on acquiring my family's vineyard, I said, my voice carrying across the room. A property that is not and will never be for sale. I placed a folder on the table. This contains evidence of fraud, embezzlement, and a pattern of deliberate actions to undermine local agricultural businesses for personal gain. Bronson's confident smile vanished. Elliott began to stammer a denial. Gentlemen, I continued, locking eyes with each of them. You came after my family's legacy. You stole our money. You endangered my father's health. That was your first mistake. Your second was thinking I wouldn't fight back. 6 months passed with breathtaking speed. After that decisive confrontation at the county commissioner's office, events had unfolded rapidly. The evidence we presented led to formal investigations into both Elliott and Bronson. Their development plans were suspended indefinitely, and the district attorney filed fraud charges against them. Dad's treatment in San Francisco proved successful. The experimental procedure, combined with his stubborn determination, had him recovering faster than the doctors predicted. By month 3, he was back at the vineyard, still moving slower but insisting on inspecting the new sustainable irrigation system we were installing. Liz and I had proceeded with divorce mediation. To her credit, once the full scope of Elliot's scheme became clear, she cooperated fully with investigators and made efforts to recover the diverted funds. It didn't save our marriage, but it did preserve some measure of civility for Emily's sake. Dad. Emily's voice pulled me from my thoughts as I stood among the vines on a crisp autumn afternoon. She'd postponed her job search to help manage the vineyard during the crisis, discovering an unexpected passion for the business in the process. "The reporter from Wine Country today is here," she said, "and Dr. Mitchell called. Grandpa left his medication at her place this morning." I raised an eyebrow. Dad had been spending a considerable amount of time with Rachel Mitchell since his recovery. At 79, he found a new lease on life and wasn't wasting it. "I'll meet the reporter in the tasting room," I replied. "Could you pick up Dad's meds?" Emily grinned. "I think Grandpa forgets his pills on purpose. He says Dr. Mitchell's voice is better medicine." I chuckled. Smart man. The interview went well, focusing on our pioneering sustainable viticulture methods, the very approach Elliot had tried to block. The reporter seemed particularly interested in how we'd overcome the financial setbacks. "Some would have sold after such difficulties," she noted. "What made you fight so hard?" I gazed out the window at the rows of vines my grandfather had first planted. "This land isn't just dirt and grapes. It's a legacy of stewardship. My father taught me that what we inherit, we must protect and improve for the next generation." After she left, I found myself walking the property alone, taking in the late afternoon light gilding the vines. My phone buzzed with a text from Bill. "Sentencing tomorrow. You coming?" I replied affirmatively. Elliot and Bronson had both pleaded guilty to reduced charges. Their fall from grace had been swift and public. As I reached the hilltop overlooking the entire estate, I spotted a familiar figure. Dr. Mitchell's car pulling up to the main house, Dad waving from the porch. Emily's car returned moments later. 3 generations of Andersons, still standing, still fighting for what mattered. The vineyard had survived, and somehow, so had we. Despite everything, I found myself smiling. The vines around me, some young, some decades old, continued their steady growth. Like them, I had been pruned back harshly but had emerged stronger, ready for new growth in unexpected directions. 1 year to the day after I placed my wedding ring on that coffee table, I stood on the highest point of the vineyard estate, surrounded by family and friends. The autumn harvest was in full swing, promising one of our finest vintages in years. Dad sat in a place of honor, Rachel Mitchell beside him. Their companionship had blossomed into something neither had expected at their age. Emily moved confidently among the guests, having officially joined the business as sustainability director after completing her certification in organic viticulture. The legal aftermath had finally settled. Elliot was serving 5 years for fraud. Bronson, who had cut a deal to testify against his partners, received a suspended sentence, but substantial financial penalties. Most importantly, the development scheme had collapsed entirely, and the threatened vineyards remained working agricultural land. "Quite a view," came a voice beside me. Dr. Sarah Cameron, who had overseen Dad's initial treatment, had joined our gathering at Emily's invitation. "Best view in the county," I agreed. "Your father told me you come up here every evening," she said. "A ritual of sorts?" I nodded. "Helps put things in perspective." Over the past months, Sarah and I had developed a friendship that had gradually deepened. We'd been taking things slowly, both carrying our own past wounds, but there was something undeniably right about her presence in my life. As dusk settled over the vineyard, I tapped a glass for attention. The gathered friends fell silent. A year ago, I thought I'd lost everything that mattered. My marriage, my father's health, possibly even this land that's been in our family for generations. I glanced at Dad, who nodded encouragingly. What I discovered instead was what truly matters. Not the things we possess, but the principles we stand by. The willingness to fight for what's right, even when it seems impossible. I raised my glass, containing the special reserve weed bottled from the vineyard's oldest vines. To resilience, I toasted. To family. And to understanding that sometimes what appears to be an ending is actually a new beginning. As glasses clinked and conversations resumed, Emily approached with a small wooden box. "Found this in the old storage cellar," she said. "Thought you might want it." Inside was my grandfather's pocket watch, thought lost years ago. Engraved on the back were words I'd heard him say many times. "Time reveals truth. Truth endures." Later, as guests departed, Sarah and I walked among the moonlit vines. She took my hand naturally, as if it belonged in hers. "So what's next for Anderson Estates?" she asked. "Expansion," I replied, "but the right kind. Working with other small vineyards on cooperative sustainability practices. Dad's idea, actually. And for you." Her question was soft, but direct. I stopped walking, turning to face her. "I'm learning that some harvests come when you least expect them," I said, "and that the finest vintages often follow the hardest seasons." Under a canopy of stars, surrounded by the fruits of 3 generations of labor, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Not just healing from betrayal, but genuine hope for what lay ahead.